Somebody in there talking about Zeke bread already.
To put a little doo-doo on it.
It's so crazy. There's many times we used to go to the convention in Memphis and we would see the hard Bibles on the hotel stands.
Yep.
Not once did I think that that book would hold a story about eating shit bread.
Nobody thought that. You know what I'm saying? But here we are. Bread with a little doo-doo caked in it.
What's up to the nerds and the fishtons in the house?
Bloop, bloop.
Bloop Bloop, Maiden and Brittany and Brian and Osei and Nikita. Oh, let me we had a one of the community members' mothers passed away yesterday.
Sorry.
Um Nina. Her mother passed away last night. So I told her anything that she needs, like let us know how the community can help, or I don't know, maybe send some flowers
Yeah, I
to her
like
or
those.
something. But yeah. But and then Dudette's daughter graduated with a master's yesterday. So Dudette been partying all weekend long.
Congrats.
Yeah,
Congrats. Yeah, congrats, man.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow. Congrats on that. Sorry to hear about that loss, man. Yeah. But congrats to Dudette and her daughter.
yeah, yeah. It's community updates. What's up, LOSO?
Oh, so what's up, buddy? You doing all right? Good to see everybody, man. Good to
Yeah.
see everybody.
We talking about Genesis 12 today, y'all. Um, this is where Abraham gets his call from the Most High.
Mm.
I wonder if he was high when he got the call from the Most High.
You know, my man said you got to. Never mind. Never mind. You know what my man said, though. You know what he came with that. So you
He said
got to
you got
be.
to be high. You got
You
to be
got to be
high.
high
What did he say? You got to be most high to
to
hear
talk to the
from the
most
most
high. You
high.
got to use the white stone. That's what he said. That's what
Yeah.
he said.
Hold on, I gotta go get my vape. Speaking of that,
Nah, I never thought I'd be in a world where I heard that.
what did he say? Also said, "I'm doing well. Hope you guys are too." Fish, orange, wide eyes. What?
Okay, we'll go with that. Whatever. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
What up, sir? Bloop bloop to everybody. Yeah.
Man, let me go get my vape. Hold on.
Joy off the mirror is a way to say that. That's definitely a way to say that, Brian. Yeah.
I'm not gonna say anything about what Brian just said. All
Yeah.
I'm gonna say
Yeah.
is,
We're gonna let that go.
yeah,
We're
all I'm
gonna
gonna
let
say
that
is
go.
read my book. That's all I'm gonna say. Read my
We're
book.
gonna let
No.
that go. All
Yeah.
right.
All right. You ready? You want me to start
All right.
reading or
Please.
okay.
We're in Genesis 12, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Boom.
Let me share the screen. All righty, here we go. The call of Abram. Now the Lord said to Abram, go from your country, in your kindred, and your father's house, to the land that I will show you. I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and the one who curses you, I will curse, and in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. You want me to keep going, or do you want to read
Um,
the whole thing, or
okay, well let's stop right there because
okay?
this is like the announcement of the original Abrahamic blessing, right? For which kind of the whole got a phone call. Sorry about that. Yeah, can you hear me?
Hmm.
Okay, sorry about that. My phone. Kind of the whole system, that was setting up here that makes the Israelites the chosen people, right? This is like the groundwork for this,
Hmm.
right? And that groundwork is laid in this particular blessing. We're gonna, the more we read into it, the more details you're gonna get about it, of course. But this is the original beginning of the Abrahamic covenant, and oddly enough. I think one of the interesting things about this is I don't know why he made this covenant per se.
Yeah, I was gonna ask that because okay, so one thing that I noticed is that it's like an abrupt switch, an abrupt jump,
Right.
because Genesis 11 is about the Tower of Babel,
Hmm.
right? And
Hmm.
then it talks about the descendants of Terah,
Hmm.
right? Like it introduces Abram, and says like Terah left Ur to go to Canaan before Abraham even connected with this God, or we see in the text
Hmm.
that Abraham hears from this God. His dad takes him, his daughter-in-law, his nephew, I mean his wife, his nephew, um, to Canaan and heads to Canaan.
Hmm.
And they end up settling in Haran.
Hmm.
Um, and then it just like switches to now the Lord said to Abraham, like it's kind of an abrupt switch, don't you think? Like something's missing,
Yes.
like maybe there was something before that.
Yes. Yes. And this is another one of those clear signs that you what's that? Okay, you're reading piece together, just kind of piecemeal stories, just kind of all right, let's put that one there, blah blah blah. It doesn't flow like a like one storyline. You get what I'm saying? So it's just like,
Yeah.
okay, that's that tradition about that. Here's a tradition about Abraham, blah, right?
Mhm.
And so this tradition starts with God just making Abraham a promise. We don't know why God's making Abraham say a promise. What do we know?
Right.
Right. But here is the beginning of this promise, and this promise basically says that God is picking Abraham's children. It doesn't even say which children, right? It just says Abraham's children. We know Abraham would go on, but we'll get into that part later. But Abraham would have more than one child,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
So, but this blessing doesn't seem to be specific to any one child yet. Just his children, right? And that whoever blesses these children will be blessed, blah 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 blah. Whoever curses these children will be cursed, right?
Right.
Kind of similar to the idea, well, kind of a reverse of the idea of Cain's situation. Basically, it was it, there was nothing to give Cain a blessing, but it was if anybody harms Cain, they will be harmed, right? If
Mhm.
anybody was to hurt you, then I'm gonna hurt them 7 times worse, right? So it's another one of those type of covenants, but this time it comes with a blessing side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And so we don't know why Torah chose to leave Ur. Like there's
Nope.
nothing in the text. Okay. So a lot of times when we're talking to Christians, they say they try to connect the God of Israel to Abraham's or Torah's God,
Yeah.
like his ancestor, the God of his ancestors, because that's what he says. Like he says that he is the God of their ancestors, but there's nothing here that says that this God spoke to Abraham's father and told him to go to Canaan,
Right.
right? And so I was wondering, like, okay, why Canaan? Like, why leave Ur to go to Canaan? And the research was saying that it was most likely the trade route at
Okay.
that time.
I
And
can
it
see that.
just yeah, that's what I was like, just, just a thought, something that, it made me want to kinda research a little bit more, like, because I didn't know Canaan had much to do with the trade routes. I knew Egypt and Syria and, like, but Canaan was important to the trade routes as well. So, for me, that would make sense as to why the God of Israel would tell them to go to Canaan,
Hmm.
if it had anything to do, because I think they were a jealous people. That's why that God was jealous. I just think they wanted what they saw everybody have, and they set out to war against and take over.
Yeah, Canaan was really like right at the knot between, Africa, the Middle East, and and Europe and Asia, right? Like that. Basically, if you centered a thing, if you put a dot in that place, it would probably be Canaan. Like so, if you're doing land trading, if you ever read about like the Silk Road, it would run right through Canaan, right? So things that are coming up from Africa and up through the Middle East to Europe and Asia, and the other way around, things coming from Europe and Asia down into Africa and the middle and yeah, the Middle East. What would more than likely, if it's going by land, it's going to go through Canaan.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then that makes sense. And then we don't know if Abraham, if they were like poor when they were in Ur, or if they were wealthy, like if they were high status. Or do you know that? Like were they
I don't know
was
that.
Torah okay.
Yeah.
So that's what I was trying to figure out too. if they were poor and they were looking around, like, because I don't think that Abraham is a real person, but I think whoever's writing this is writing from a place of jealousy, like from the Israelites. So
Right.
like if they were looking around, they were seeing the success of all the nations around them, and they were like a poor people. You know what I'm saying?
But they
And
were
they were
definitely
poor.
nomadic people, so but we wouldn't imagine them to have a lot, right? Like these were
Mhm.
nomadic people. These weren't people who had like sat down and really built a culture. You know, yeah, they hadn't really built a culture. They weren't able to like cultivate land at the time. Blah 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 blah. So you can imagine that they weren't like a wealthy folk when they moved into the town, right? Because it's hard to acquire wealth when you have to move around. It's kind of like when you eat out every day, it's cheaper to just buy food,
Mhm.
right? So when you're
Right.
having to move around and having to expend all this energy and money and resource just to move around, you can't really build wealth.
And somebody,
So
Brian just asked, why not just give them the land they were in? And that's a great question. But I think or Mesopotamia, that area went through. They would be a part of the kingdom of Kish, right?
yeah,
Okay, and so they went through a massive tsunami, and it messed up like their land. Their land was not able to be it made their land salt marshes, and it messed up their economy. And I know that's what happened to Kish. So I'm wondering if that's why they went from or down into the Levant area, because they couldn't make money. That would be another
could
reason.
be.
And that could be why, like when you ask the question, why didn't he give them their land? I mean the land that they were in. I would also say, why didn't he just give them, you know what I'm saying? Like, fix
Mm-hmm.
it. He sent
Mm-hmm.
the tsunami, dry it
Mm-hmm.
up,
Dry it up.
you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. Fair enough.
Hey Christina.
Hey, darling, how you doing?
And then, like, if Babylon, no, well, it wasn't Babylon then, or it was Babylon, I don't know. But if the reason why they could not, they had to take Nebuchadnezzar ended up taking the Israelites and a bunch of Africans to Babylon to work as slaves to help turn their land from salt marshes into land that could produce agriculture. Then you also have to go back, like, think about the flood. If they could not farm on their land because of a tsunami, like in actual history, Kish was destroyed, their economy was destroyed because of the tsunami. And years later, they needed help from people who were already producing agriculture and being successful in the Levant area. The flood just doesn't make sense either, because it would mess up the land everywhere.
Man, the flood don't just the yeah. When you think about the what the effects of that flood would have been, you got to think that every living animal except two of every kind is gone, right? So
Mhm.
just the amount of decaying bodies, just the amount of like bacteria, like we still wouldn't be able to grow stuff. That's
Well,
just not how life works. Yeah.
yeah, I agree. All right. So, verse 4, so Abram went, and as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. Abram took his wife Sarah and his brother's son Lot and all the possessions that they had gathered and the persons whom they had acquired in Haran, and they set forth to go to the land of Canaan. When they had come to the land of Canaan, Abram passed through the land to the place at Shechem, to the oak of Moreh or Moreh. At that time, the Canaanites were in the land. Then the Lord appeared to Abram and said, to your offspring I will give this land. So he built there an altar to the Lord, who had appeared to him. From there he moved on to the hill country on the east of Bethel and pitched his tent, with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. And there he built an altar to the Lord and invoked the name of the Lord. And Abram journeyed on by stages towards the Negev.
Which was the South. If you had to just take a guess as to what source this is coming from, what would you think this source was coming
Like the JDP
from?
source,
Mm.
the priestly source, the Yahweh.
Absolutely, absolutely. The priestly, right? This would be priestly source because he builds altars everywhere, right? He got
Mhm.
here, let me build an altar. Get over here, let me build an altar, right? Because we have to establish that Abraham was giving sacrifices. You want to be like Abraham. It's the right thing to do. Give sacrifices, right? And so we're establishing this sacrifice idea early, right? Abraham gave sacrifice. He built his an altar. He definitely did this. So and you see that when you speak of the Negev, you're talking about like southern Israel, right? So now they're starting to kind of trace out this line of what Israel is, right? Just mentally. Hey, here's where Abraham was between Ai and Bethel, right? And of course, Bethel means the house of God. I don't even know what Ai means.
So I was gonna bring that up. Let me show you something right quick. So I still have some more questions. Okay, so the archaeologists have actually excavated um, AI at Tel. Um, Edward Robinson first identified AI with the site at Tel in 1838. And what they ended up discovering, like with the strata, the article that shows the strata and the methodology that they use to determine that AI just was never ever a city. It says,
Mm,
therefore, the Israelites could not have conquered the city of Ai. Callaway attempted to force the lack of evidence between the site and the biblical narrative regarding the conquest of Ai by stating the inhabitants of the first phase were not Israelites, but perhaps Hivites, and the conquest of Ai was simply a takeover of the villages by Israelites who then became occupants of the site. But it said they ended up just coming to the conclusion that the site just never existed, that there was never a city
mm,
in existence. So, with that being said, let me go back. And y'all, anybody that's watching, if you are a nerd, that document is in the Google Drive and it's titled Joshua and the Canaanite Conquest. The links to the archaeological reports and all that is in the Google Drive as well. But going back, so how can he had how can he have pitched a tent at AI if it never existed?
this is what happens when you start with conclusions and work backwards,
Mm.
right? Like, yeah, that's really the best way to say that, right? Like a lot of these stories, when we get into the Joshua conquest, you're gonna find so much information that just says that's just not how that went. Like, this is this is hero stories. These are like hero stories, right? And so you start laying the groundwork for them early. But as far as these conquests, these cities, these places, they're not necessarily real.
So then the conversation that he had with the Lord at Bethel and AI, like, I mean, it's you can this. I think, like for me, it just debunks the whole Abraham promise story for me too. If it's saying that he did this and this is where he talked to the Lord and like the places just never existed.
Yeah, that place just didn't exist. Also, I mean, you said this earlier, but just to reiterate, Abraham is not a real person,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Like, this is yeah, Abraham is not a real person. This is a tradition that was going around in Israel about their origins, right?
Yeah.
And as you can see, as we were talking today, people can make up origin stories out of nowhere,
Yeah.
right? People make
Yeah.
up origin stories out of nowhere, like Bantu people. What? Like, what are we talking about? Like, you're just making up an origin story, and you take a little bit of something that you heard. I'm sure she's heard something about Bantu people or the Bantu expansion. But remember, we were talking. Y'all don't know what we're talking about. We were on a live earlier, and a lady was talking about the Bantu expansion, and she just turned that into colonialism and turned that into being Hebrew, and it's just it's an origin story,
Yeah, and they're
right? Where
saying that they're like uh connecting their genealogy back. Like they're doing the history and connecting their genealogy back. But what how are they doing that? There's no DNA.
they're not.
These places didn't exist.
Not. They're making up an origin story. Just making it up. You know what I'm saying? Like, she heard somebody say that, right? I'm sure someone else told her that. Because nothing against the lady, right? But you don't expect me to believe that she actually did this research herself, right? So
Right,
it's not like
right,
she did it. She heard someone say that. She put that into kind of assimilated that into her own belief system and created an origin story. This is the
right.
same thing that's happening here.
Well, who just got a gold mitt?
What is that?
Did you hear that? Like a
I heard
TikTok
it.
gold? Who? Okay, that was weird.
Huh.
So, somebody just got a TikTok gold mitt. You got? Are you still on
I'm not
African?
on TikTok.
You're not.
No.
I don't know. That was weird.
Welcome to the crossover, where we mix TikTok and YouTube.
TikTok, follow us wherever we go. What the hell?
It's called TikTube. Welcome to TikTube, where we'll what? What does this even mean? What's going on here?
I don't know.
The World Wide Web is crossing over.
Maybe my phone is still like I know I shut it down. I remember closing it, but I don't know.
Yeah, maybe it's still on. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And so we also see here where it says that at this point Abraham had slaves. It
Yes,
says
yes,
okay.
yes. So we've established slavery early. We've established sacrifices early. We're starting to draw out the line of what Israel would be. We're creating a hero character. It's a lot going on in here. We're going with the tradition of Abram here, and later on it's going to become Abraham. Which okay, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. But God changed his name. God did not change his name. This is just a redaction of how people pronounce the word. That's it. It's just right. Like kind of like I'm from Birmingham, but in England you don't call it Birmingham. You call it Birmingham, right?
Birmingham?
Yeah, it's Birmingham, England,
Oh,
right?
I didn't know that.
Where I'm from is named after a town in England, and they pronounce it Birmingham. We pronounce it Birmingham. It's the same thing as Abraham, right?
Oh, okay.
The same thing. It's just they pronounce the name differently in different places. And so you read it and say, oh, well, yeah, God changed his name from, we're going to say it this way now because God changed his name from Abram to Abraham. That would be like me saying, oh, yeah, God changed it from Birmingham to Birmingham, right? And no, y'all just pronounce it different because y'all from different parts. And you start to so you're creating all of this kind of again, an origin story. You're creating an origin story. Why do we say it this way? Right? They say it like this. Why do we say it this way? Oh, because God changed his name. Yeah.
Okay. And when it says that he invoked, it says from there he moved on to the hill country. Um, and there he built an altar to the Lord and invoked the name of the Lord. Does that mean that this is where he first established the name of Yahweh, or that he was just praying?
Well, yeah, it seems like he was just praying.
Okay.
We're gonna run into keep this in mind because later on you gonna find that nobody knew his name. Abraham didn't know Yahweh's name.
Okay.
Again, redactions,
How did he
right? Like
invoke the name of the Lord if he didn't know his name?
see, it's redactions,
Like,
right? Like
there is. I get it. Like these are the questions that like I know what you're talking about when they're in the uh
when he
not
talked
in
to
the when
Moses.
Moses didn't know his name.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he said,
that like
my name is Yahweh, but by my name I wasn't known to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I never
oh that's
told
right.
them my name,
Yeah.
right?
So how is he invoking the name of the Lord right here?
It's an origin story. They just making this up.
Oh my
Just
God.
making this
Okay.
up. Yeah.
Okay.
So the Yahweh definitely want to establish early in the text. No, Yahweh's name been being said since Seth, right? Remember when
Oh,
we
okay.
read back about Seth,
Mhm.
and by then men started to call upon the name of Yahweh way back at Seth,
Okay, that
right?
makes sense. Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
So the Yahweh's are trying to get theirs in. No. This is one God. It's always been Yahweh. Abraham used to call on Yahweh. They're redacting this into the story. But when you get to Exodus, it's gonna be like, oh, they didn't know my name. You don't know my name, right? But clearly, right, he was invoking his name right here.
Yeah. That's yeah. That makes sense. Fee in the house.
See, the God of the Cod Mod Squad.
Okay. All right. The next thing. Now there was a famine in the land. So Abraham went down to Egypt to reside there as an alien, for the famine was severe in the land. When he was about to enter Egypt, he said to his wife Sarah, this is where he first pimped her out for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
know well that you are a beautiful woman in appearance, and when the Egyptians see you, they will say, this is his wife. Then they will kill me. but they will let you live. Say you are my sister, so that it may go well with me because of you, and that my life may be spared on your account. When Abraham entered Egypt, the Egyptians saw that the woman was very beautiful. When the officials of Pharaoh saw her, they praised her to Pharaoh, and the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. And for her sake, he dealt with Abraham and had sheep, oxen, male donkeys, male and female slaves, female donkeys, and camels.
This is
Why
this
do
is
they have to
taking
say
it
male
deeper.
donkey? Like, why? Why do they have to say male donkeys, then male and female slaves, then female donkeys and camels? Like, why not just donkeys? Like they say sheep and oxen. Why not just donkeys?
You know what? I don't know why they do donkeys that way because like she asked, this is a big deal, right? And I don't really know the cultural relevance, but like whenever, uh, when we read the thing about when we read over in Job, they make sure that you know, hey, Job had she asses, not just donkeys, but she asses, right? I don't know why. I don't know the cultural importance of that,
Okay.
but I do know that that's done a lot. I also wanted to say that this is a okay. You're gonna see this same duplicate happen again, right? He gonna pimp his wife out again, blah 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 blah. But
With
also notice
Abimelech.
with Abimelech. But
Mhm.
also notice this is another duplicate. Why did the children of Israel go into Egypt the first time?
The famine?
There was a famine in the land,
Mhm.
right? There was a famine in the land here, and so he had to go into Egypt. There's a famine in the land again in Canaan, right? He's in Canaan
Okay.
right now. There's a famine in Canaan, so they went to Egypt. Israelites, there's a famine in Canaan, so they went to Egypt, right? And because of the way that one of the brothers was favored in the land, right? One of the brothers was favored in the land because of their brother, the Pharaoh dealt kindly with the people. Because of his sister, the Pharaoh deals kindly with Abraham, right? So these are uh, some people might call them foreshadowings, but they're not foreshadowings. They're duplicates. This is the same story, right? It's the same. I'm just borrowing from this tradition here and putting it here.
Mhm.
Right, I'm establishing this thing here, but you're gonna see, just like he pimped out Sarah here, he's gonna do the exact same thing again. You run into that story, another story like that when we get to Sodom and Gomorrah. The exact same story happens in Judges 19. That happens in Genesis 19, right? The endings of them are a little different, but you know, okay, this is the same story. Some of it is literally word for word, right? Same
Mhm.
story, right? So this is a duplicate story that you're seeing here about there was a famine in the land of Canaan, and then so then he went into Egypt, right? Okay, and
Mhm.
later on it's gonna be like, oh, there's a famine in the land of Canaan, and so the Israelites went into Egypt. That's because you're telling the same origin story, right? But it comes attached to two different traditions.
Yeah. The Midrash. Of course it's rabbinic literature, but they explain it away as the sages told them that it was a foreshadowing of what happened to the Israelites before they went into Egypt. Like this,
Right.
yeah, they're trying to say it's a foreshadowing. But isn't it in Galatians where Paul says that the stories of Abraham uh and Sarah and Hagar is allegory for the two covenants?
He looks at it as two covenants. Some people look at it as foreshadowing, but yes, but this is what happens when you have to when you try to explain these, like, I don't want to call, let me, what do you call them, coincidences, right? Like, that's mighty fishy. We just said this. Why are you saying it again? Oh, it's a foreshadowing. Oh, it's an allegory, right? And
Mhm.
everybody's landed on different pieces of it because everybody got a different explanation,
Yeah.
right? But in actuality, what happened was this is just a repeat of a story. It's a repeat of a story because people had different traditions. And as much as I just told you about Abram and Abraham, right? People had different traditions as to why were we in Egypt. Well, and the truth of the matter is, they weren't in Egypt, right?
Mhm.
Right?
Where were they?
They weren't in Egypt. That we have no archaeological evidence that Israel was ever in Egypt.
Oh, you talking about the Israelite? I thought you talking about Sarah and
Yeah,
Abraham. You talking about the Israelites were not in
yeah,
Egypt?
they
Yeah,
weren't in Egypt. But
yeah.
the point of this story is to place them there, right?
Okay.
Oh no, we got into Egypt with Abraham, and then the story gonna take a whole nother turn. But then it's like, oh no, we got into Egypt because of a famine, and then Joseph went down there,
Mhm.
right? But imagine me telling you a story of like, hey, why were you at the grocery store? Oh, I went because my mama took me. And then you ask me again, hey, why were you at the grocery store? Oh man, it was a fight at my cousin's house. What? That's not the same story you just told me, right? But
Mm.
and when you're redacting this, you're trying to turn it into one smooth story, but you're trying to keep everybody's traditions alive. So you run into things like this, right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and that's why you get them jumps from like, oh, we were in. You just jump to Abraham. Well, I don't have a story. Well, the Book of Jasher kind of tries to weave it in a little bit better, right? Um, but these are redacted, kind of stitched together traditions. And some people had the tradition that Abraham went into Egypt, and some people had a tradition that no, it wasn't Abraham that went into Egypt. It was Joseph that went into Egypt, right? These are just two separate stories about the same issue. No different than when you read about Jesus and it's like, oh, well, after Jesus was baptized, he went straight to the wilderness.
Into
No, after
Egypt. No.
yeah, when Jesus was baptized, he went to a wedding. Well, which is it? Right? These are just redacted stories. Some of them work in certain places, some of them work better in other places, and you try to put them all together.
Mm.
Right? Yeah.
Um. So does the paper Bible that you have right there, does it mention Sarah in a chest? I know the Hebrew Bible does. I remember growing up being told that Abraham hid her in the chest.
Let me
Does
see.
it mention her in the chest?
I don't see that. Put the altar, journey, give. I don't see anything about chess. Son, feminine land came to pass into Egypt. Indeed, now the children wonderful. Happened to me. Nah, it doesn't. I don't see anything that says it.
Yeah, it's
Are we
hold
talking
on.
about? Wait. Are you talking about? No, maybe. I don't know.
Genesis 12 and 14. It says,
Genesis.
and it was when Abram came to Egypt, and then it has in brackets with Sarah hidden in a chest, that the Egyptians spied the woman and found her to be very beautiful. But I remember my father preaching uh, saying that he hid her in the chest and they found her in the chest.
Wow, it does. Wow. 12:14 says, so it was when Abram came into Egypt that the Egyptians saw the woman. Right. It does, I don't.
It
Does
doesn't
say
say
nothing
that
about chest right
in
here.
the paper Bible. It doesn't mention the chest.
Hmm. Hmm.
Where did he get that she was in the chest?
Well, but you
I know
reading
my
it right
dad
there.
did not read the Hebrew Bible, huh?
And you said the Hebrew Bible that say that?
Yeah, let me show you. Hold on. You see it right here?
Well, I
And
can't see that. That's super small, but
oh, is
I
it?
believe you.
Is it real small? I don't know
Well,
how to make it
keep in
big.
mind, I'm not on the computer. I'm on my phone, so this
Oh,
screen is
okay.
literally this big to me.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, it says, and it was when Abram came to Egypt, and then it has the brackets with Sarah hidden in the chest, that the Egyptians spied the woman and found her to be very beautiful.
The brackets mean that there was probably an addition later on, or like, um, because
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out where my daddy got that from,
no.
because my dad preached a sermon and he talked about how Abraham had to do that so that he wouldn't die. And then my dad said that um he told the story like he hit her in the chest,
What's
then
so
they
crazy is
found her
I
in the
thought
chest.
what Christina thought. I thought you said he hit her in the chest. I was like, what?
Oh no, hid her. Like,
Yeah,
but
I thought, I was like, what?
was Miriam hid in a chest?
I think one of the girls had to hide something in the chest one time. Well, when I think it's when Jacob took Rachel and Leah when they were leaving, she hid an idol in the chest. I know was Miriam in the chest? I don't know. I don't know. We'll get to it. We'll get to it.
Okay.
But for right now, this Hebrew Bible says he hid it in the chest,
Mm-hmm.
which is weird. But it's not.
Ain't it weird?
It's not in this one. But hey, yeah,
Okay. And then okay. So where did we stop off at?
we have 15.
Okay. 15.
Oh no. We must be past 15 because we talked about commanded the
Oh,
Pharaoh
oh,
taking the Pharaoh
he
house.
got paid for her.
Yeah. Let's start at 15. Let's just start at 15. Pick it up
Okay.
from there.
When the officials of Pharaoh saw her, they praised her to Pharaoh, and the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. And for her sake, he dealt well with Abram, And he had sheep, oxen, male donkeys, male and female slaves, female donkeys, and camels. So they would pay, and that's how they gained their wealth, I think.
Mm-hmm. Pimping ain't easy, but it's necessary. So say the book. Pimping ain't easy, but it's necessary.
And
Okay.
he kept doing it, and then he taught Isaac how to do it with Leah.
Pimping ain't easy, but it's biblical. Come on, turn to your neighbor.
Oh my god.
Pimping ain't easy, but it's biblical.
Oh my goodness. But it's biblical.
But it's biblical. Hey yo. Okay. All right. Yeah. Let's keep going. Let's keep going.
Okay, we're on verse 17 now. But the Lord afflicted Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarah, Abraham's wife.
See, duplicate. You see what I'm saying? So you end up in Pharaoh's house. You grow and multiply in Pharaoh's house. Eventually, God sends plagues to Pharaoh's house because they're there. Right. Same thing happens in Exodus. You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
This is a okay. Keep going. Keep going.
Um, what else
And
oh,
Pharaoh,
there it
we're
is.
at 18.
Oh, so Pharaoh called Abram and said, "What?" He called him on the phone. Like what? Okay, so Pharaoh, it sound like Pharaoh called Abram and said, "What is this you have done to me? Why did you not tell me that she was your wife? Why did you say she is my sister, so that I took her for my wife? Now then, here is your wife. Here is your wife. Take her and be gone." And Pharaoh gave his men orders concerning him, and they set him on the way with his wife and all he had.
Right. So that's the end of the chapter. Okay. Okay. All right.
Mm,
So again, I'm. This story is a duplicate of what you'll see in Exodus, but the end is different. At the end, the end that Exodus is, God caused the plagues to come on the house, and then the Israelites escaped, and the Pharaoh chased them, right? And then God drowned them. But in this one, it's just, oh no. I remember it said in Exodus, it'll say like, and they took with them all the gold and da 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 da, and then they ran, and then Pharaoh chased them. On this one, it's like, no, no, no. Pharaoh just gave them the stuff and told them to go away,
mm,
right? So the ending is different, but the story, the plot points in the story are the same. Famine in Egypt, famine in Canaan. So you move down to Egypt. You have a kinsman that gets some power in Egypt through the Pharaoh. So in this case, it's the sister or wife, either way, right? It's the sister that gains favor with the Pharaoh. You multiply greatly, or you get great increase in Egypt, and then eventually God sends plagues on Egypt, and then in this story, Pharaoh gives Abraham the stuff, and they leave peacefully. In that story, God sends plagues on Egypt, but then they run, but taking all the gold, right? But it's the same story.
yeah, like you would expect, like I not looking at it from the perspective of the documentary hypothesis, right? You
Yep.
would expect that Pharaoh would have known not to play with God at by that time in Exodus, not to let the people go. Like the history of what this God would have done, right,
Right.
to get Sarah out the house. Because I don't. It doesn't say how many plagues he sent, but if you read the stories in the Midrash, it says that the God sent an angel, right, to protect Sarah inside of the Pharaoh's house, and that anytime the Pharaoh tried to get close to Sarah, the angel would crack the Pharaoh with a whip. The angel would beat the Pharaoh with a whip. And it says the Pharaoh tried to touch Sarah's feet, and the angel cracked it with a whip. So it says the angel was in the Pharaoh's castle beating the crap out of the Pharaoh with a whip. And that's what made the Pharaoh decide to get Sarah out. He was like, I got to get this woman out of my house. But like,
Biblical cock blocking is crazy. Biblical cock blocking is on a whole different level. That's a different level of cock blocking.
with a whip.
That's
He was
beating a man with a whip is diabolical. You a hater at that point. You are a hater. Wow. Wow. Well,
Yeah, like you should read some of these stories in the midrash from the rabbis. But you would think by then the stories would have gone throughout Egypt. Don't mess with the Israelites' gods, right? Or don't mess with the God of these people because they can send angels
to
to
beat your ass.
whittle
Angelic ass whoopers is a different kind. You didn't even know that. You didn't know they did that. You didn't. I didn't know they did that. They did that. Okay.
right. But yeah, it's
Yeah,
just I don't know.
Yanni.
It
Let's
just
go
it's
ahead and get
crazy.
Yanni. Let's go ahead and get Yanni taken away from life. The cock block sign is horrible. Take emojis away from people? The
Where
emojis.
did they send that? Where you see it?
You see
Oh.
Yanni right there, 7259.
Oh.
Yanni 72. The cock block sign is crazy. Let's just no more emojis for anybody else. That's biblical block is also. Let's get that out of here too.
Oh my god.
We not doing
They
that.
don't act, hey, they got no home training. They don't act right
We're not
nowhere.
doing this. Not online. No, we're not gonna do this. Not this goes out to public. People gonna watch this and they gonna know that you said that. Y'all cut. We not on TikTok. We not at home, y'all. Y'all can't behave like this in public. You get what I'm saying? We can't act like this in public.
We on
We have to show
YouTube. No.
decorum. Decorum. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
that is crazy. But
Let's
yeah,
go
you
ahead.
would definitely think the Pharaoh would have known better by then.
Yes, but of course, again, because we're looking at redacted stories, we're putting these stories together just according to the traditions of the people, these oral traditions that's been going around. You'll find things out of place. You'll find duplicates of certain stories. You'll find blah blah blah, this that, and the third. And this is why again the JDP it shows itself so prevalent in the Torah. Like you can just see it.
Mhm.
But this is people's way of um, establishing their nationality, right? Again, no different than when you talk to Hebrew Israelites or people, people around that circle. You'll find people who are like, oh yeah, it came from the Bantu people, or oh nah, it happened at this point, or it happened when after Jesus died, at the destruction of the temple, or oh nah, it happened when we got on boats in West Africa, right? You guys are making up an origin story, and
Yeah.
so these important pieces of the story, it just depends on how you heard it. You know what I'm saying? Like what version of the story you heard. So imagine if we were really trying to, for example, uh, how do I get saved?
I have no idea. Oh, Jesus forgive me of my sins, I guess.
But like, how do I apply that? Like, sometimes it says I have to confess or believe on Jesus and be baptized.
Mhm,
Sometimes it says I just got to confess with my mouth and believe in my heart.
mhm.
Sometimes it says I just got to call upon the name of the Lord. Sometimes you get what I'm saying. So
Establish a relationship like Abraham did and just invoke the name that you don't know.
invoke the name, right? So because this isn't these are traditions that float around, right? Do I have to speak in tongues? Do I have to not speak in tongues? Do I get baptized in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost? Do I get baptized in the name of Jesus?
Mhm.
Right? These are just different traditions that are floating around, and we try to redact them all into one story. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Same thing is happening here, right? It's like,
Mhm.
okay, well, why were we in Egypt? Well, because Abraham went to Egypt because there was a famine in Canaan. Oh no, 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 no. Because Joseph went down to Egypt and there was a famine in Canaan. Well, okay, right.
Yeah.
These are just different traditions that you're floating around. Yeah,
Yeah. It was a question I was gonna yeah. Why didn't Pharaoh get a refund?
bro. Once an angel beat your ass, once an angel beat your ass, you just have to let that. You have to let that go. You have to let that go.
Man, Abraham, that's why he kept doing it. That's why he kept pimping her out. Because how do you recollect? How do you repossess she donkeys, he donkeys, oxen,
Slaves,
ship, yeah, slaves, all that? How do you repossess all that?
you break your buy, bro. You can't repossess it. You made out, right? Like, and then again, you're gonna read the same story in just a minute, right? But did this really happen twice, or is this just a retelling of that story,
Yeah. Because what
right?
you don't see happening here is Hagar being given to Sarah. in this
Right.
story.
You don't see Hagar being given to, right. So is this a retelling of the story, right? Or did this really happen two times? More right. This is a retelling of the
Well,
story.
I'm talking when I say the second time, like Abimelech is a different. That's a
A
different
different
one.
version story. Yes.
Yeah. You're saying that he see it twice in Egypt, right?
Oh no, no,
Is
no.
that
You're
what you're
just going to
saying?
see the plot points twice. Kind of like again when I talk about Sodom and Gomorrah being in the Bible twice. Sodom and Gomorrah is only there once. The next time it's Bethlehem, Judah, but it's the same story, right? It just
Yeah.
happened in a different place. Yeah.
Yeah. With the story with Abimelech, though, they Abimelech and Abram, or Abimelech. I mean, Abram. Did he? Is that where he did the covenant with the tree in the
I
land?
don't remember. Is that this next story? Let me see.
I don't think it's the next one.
No, I think it's on down.
So I know in one of the stories, um, it talks about where how Abraham got Hagar, and we haven't gotten to that yet. So I think it talks about them going into it gives the story of them going into Egypt twice, and then one of them, he gets she gets Hagar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, um, but this one doesn't necessarily talk about Hagar. Like she doesn't get
Right.
Hagar
You're
here.
gonna get Hagar in this story. Right.
Mhm.
Right. So you tell the story again. There's another tradition about when he goes into Egypt and da 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 da. And this time you see what I'm saying? These are the same plot points, but the story ends a little differently, right? Because these are different traditions about the same story, and you're trying to sew them all together into this one flowing story. It just doesn't work.
I think the one with Abimelech though is um has a different, well, it has the same plot, but I think it's in a different land, and it had a I think there was a new covenant or something that was enacted there. But
Mm-hmm.
so and then Isaac does it with Rebecca.
Mm-hmm. Same
He
plot
lies
point.
to Abimelech, does the same thing. So it seemed like to me that that was a family practice and how they gained their wealth, because when they were sending their women in, they were getting payment, and then whatever happened that the woman had to come back. Like I think the pharaohs didn't want to take anybody's wives or something, because they felt that they were going to get cursed by their gods.
Yeah.
Um, and so they was having to send the women back, but they were getting payment for the women. So I think that not necessarily in this big grandiose way. I think that this is how they were.
They were getting money like this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they were getting money like this. Is a family
It,
business, I think.
it was a family business. If you're looking at this as something that actually happened, yes, right. It forms a pattern of this is the family business. This is how we go collect wealth, right?
Hmm.
You get somebody fine, you take them down there, you send them to somebody rich, and then we take their stuff and you leave.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing.
Yeah,
This is the first pimps up, hoes down.
I am I am sick of you, honestly. Honestly,
All I
oh,
see, we literally have an emote of Abraham, and for our the sub emotes, he has an emote. He uh he got the long beard with a doobie in his mouth, and it's bitch better have my money.
okay, I want everybody involved in that to go to jail. Everybody who has ever participated in that
Cause what? Like he pimped out his wife multiple times, and then
go to
he
jail.
taught his son how to do it, and then his son
Uh,
started. It was a family business.
Family business, family business. Fair enough. And I want everybody in jail. So whoever made that emote, whoever used the emote, jail. That's it for that.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. Go ahead and go to jail. And this, well, I come visit you. I put money on your books, the whole nine. But you belong in the penitentiary. Thank you. Thank
All right. I think that's all the questions that I had. I could have sworn that I read in here that it said, "Oh, at this time, Sodom and Gomorrah, the Lord had not off Sodom and Gomorrah."
you. No,
So
that
it's
don't
kind of
happen
like
in
a
19.
flashback, huh?
That don't happen in 19.
Yeah, but don't it mention it in here? Something about the Lord. This is when the Lord had not yet off Sodom and Gomorrah.
In this chapter,
I thought it did. I don't know what the hell. It was saying. Let's see. Maybe I went on ahead and read the next chapter. Then it went down to I. Maybe it's in the next chapter. I don't know.
In the next one. I don't think they
I
mentioned
don't.
Sodom in this chapter.
I don't know where I read that. But yeah. Um. Okay. Yeah. I think that's all the questions that I have, or all the
All the points we wanted to make on that.
thoughts. Yeah.
Okay.
I guess you have like any thoughts.
No, I really think the most important thing about this chapter, and as we're reading these, I want to make sure that all the people who are following along with us are noticing the beginning of these patterns, like you mentioned. You're gonna see this family business forming. If you think like there are two ways to read this. In other words, I think is what I want to say. One is as a narrative, like pretend that this is a real story and this is how they're setting things up, and you'll see these certain patterns forming. So you see this family business being brought up. At the same time that you're watching that, I want you to be watching for, okay, this is a duplicate story. Right. So look at it in both of the ways. One of them is just, okay, we're seeing these patterns happen amongst people, and you can get a narrative that says, okay, clearly this is how Israel makes its money, right? Or early Israelites, this is how they get their money. Well, I say Israelites, I guess children of Abraham, I should say. And then at the same time, be looking and going, okay, I just read this. I just saw this. This is the same. These are the same plot points from the story I just read.
Yeah.
Why is this happening again? More than likely, this is a tradition, um, a different version of the same tradition, right?
Yeah.
Again, you run into the same thing when you get into the New Testament. Just different versions of the same tradition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The JEPD.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. Yep.
Um,
I don't have any other questions. Now I feel like I'm going crazy because I know that I read when I was studying it because it said, "Oh, and this is before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah," and, and it made me think like, "Oh, this whoever's writing this is writing from like another source."
let's see
And
some.
they're
Hold on. Let's see. The first time we find the word Sodom, because that would be the first mention of Sodom. Let me look up here. This in the next chapter. It's in chapter 13, 13 and 10.
oh, okay. So I read ahead then. I probably read ahead to get a an answer to something because I was trying to. I also like it shocked me when it says now the Lord, and I'm like that's a pretty abrupt um
Mm-hmm.
jump. So okay, so it's in the
Mm-hmm.
next chapter then.
It's in the next chapter.
All
So
right.
we'll hop to that next time we get on, man. I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do in here in Georgia. I gotta get to work, I guess. Um, I hate working on
If you
Sundays.
go live, let us know. You didn't go live yesterday or the day before that.
I did not go live. I hopped on some other people's lives, but I didn't go live myself. I be wanting to go live, but like I'm cooking up a certain thought that I gotta figure out how to relate, how to relate. So I didn't want to go live. I ain't really have what I wanted to say yet, but I don't
Oh,
want to disappoint you guys. So I am gonna go live. Maybe I'll go live today and just chat about that, cooking up the thought with y'all.
okay. Well, let me know.
Will
Uh,
do.
All right, to all of y'all, thank y'all so much as always for showing up and engaging and interacting with us. We are over the mark of our 500 subscriber goal, well into 600, almost to 1,000. Please continue to recommend, like, and share the podcast. And until next time, Blue
Man,
Chew.
this was a good one. I enjoyed y'all. Y'all be good.
Yeah. All right. You too. Bye, y'all.